Shut up, compressor. Hey everyone, Matt here with Duke's Models, and welcome to part 8 of the P-40F build. Now, it's been a little while since I've played with the P-40. Part of that was racing to try to finish the 2 Mustang kits I was working on before heading out to Florida for a week. And then being in Florida for a week makes it tough to be at the bench airbrushing. And since I've gotten back, I'll be honest, I've been playing with other subjects and kind of procrastinating a little bit. But it's time to start putting colors down on the upper surfaces. And to do this with the silver base, I'm going to be taking a similar approach to what I did on the underside with all that sandwich shading stuff. But instead of using RLM2 and International Blue and things like that, because they really wouldn't fit with Middlestone and Dark Earth, I'm going to be using more of a litany of browns. So one of them is going to be this MRP Sand Gray, Chestnut Brown, and Chocolate. And the cool thing about the Chestnut Brown and the Chocolate is they honestly to me feel like different sides of the same coin. The Chestnut Brown is dark, but it is also rather desaturated. And the chocolate is rather saturated. So that'll allow us to put some fun tones in there. Honestly, I might have to darken these up just a little bit. We'll see how that goes. And the other fun thing I have to consider is making room for chipping. That's going to suck. Chipping and camo at the same time. Yeesh. I'll figure it out though. But I think for the purposes of getting started, I'm going to get started in areas where there's not chipping and kind of work my way towards like the leading edge of the wing root and basically the whole wing root area back here, especially P-40s tend to see significant chipping there. Basically, once you get outside of the guns, at least on the photos I'm looking at, it's hard to see significant evidence of chipping. So I think basically from here on out, I can kind of go with just paint. I'm going to put a little bit on the cowl, but probably not that much. Again, reference photos I'm looking at, I see a little bit of chipping right up here, essentially just ahead of the exhaust stubs, a little bit on the prop spinner, a little bit up here on the windscreen. I'm going to do some liquid frisket masking there though, just because I don't want to be dealing with fighting hairspray off that thing with all the masking on it. So that is the plan. Now let's get started. Okay, we're going to start out with the chestnut brown. Okay, so the chestnut brown is pretty much down, except for the areas that are going to be chippified. And mainly I'm holding off on those because I want to be able to come in and kind of do this fast. So now it's time to switch over, put down some chocolate. Okay, so first things first, playing with these spatter stencils to get just a nice bit of randomness going on. Bigger pattern. A lot of this will probably be totally lost when I come in and add the Middlestone, but try to build some fun patterns and things like that underneath. These stencil masks can look kind of repetitive and dumb if you just do them like one and done. But as you layer them with multiple colors, it does start to bring things to life a bit. Okay, so next up, we've got some sand gelb, and I'm going to start using this to map out where the Middlestone is going to go. So, yay. Okay, so the sand gelb is down. It's looking pretty decent. Good base for further work. Now it is time to bring in some MRP Middlestone. Now again, this is not going to be the final Middlestone I'm going to use, but I'm going to use it to help build up some of the base color. Okay, so we've got a base coat of MRP Middlestone working here. Now I'm going to go ahead and move into some MRP Dark Earth. Again, this isn't the one I decided to use. I think I decided to use the guns. But we're basing shit at this point. And when you're basing shit, MRP is just a lot easier to use because there's no mixing involved. Imagine that. Okay, so the airbrush is dry and it's late, and I'm about to call it a night, but there's now a start to the overall color tone of the P-40 happening here. And again, this is the MRP temperate colors going down right now, but they're not going to be the final ones. So if we look at the test Hellcat, the ones that I have in mind are the guns, Dark Earth, and Middlestone. And to be honest, I might stick with the MRP Middlestone. I'm liking the way that it's going so far. And it's right here for reference when it gets to full opacity. But definitely still going with the guns Dark Earth. I like that more desaturated look. This looks a little bit browny to me. So still great for basing things out. And if you get in here nice and close, you can see there's already a lot of stuff going on in the paint there. And we're just getting started. So pick back up in a moment. Okay, so I've been putting it off as long as I can, but it is time to put down some hairspray. For this, I'm going to be using the PS290 to get that good, even coverage. So now that that's on, it's time to focus on building up the various layers again. Keeping it as light as we possibly can. What's the problem with these things? The fucking edges. Okay, it's chipping time. So I've been working on the starboard wing here. I think I'm pretty happy with how it's going down. I basically added in the Dark Earth exactly where the chipping is going to be. I can worry about all this shit over here later. I'm going to get this stuff sorted out as much as I can first. So, yay. But we've got chipping here on the wing root, leading edge a little bit right there. We've got chipping up on the cowl here. Basically all I'm doing, I can move over to the port side now. Getting a ratty old brush, damp. Actually, I kind of prefer getting it wetter than that first, just to start the soaking action. And then you want to watch it really closely. So we can see the first few chips kind of poking in there. Got a nice opened up wing root. Leading edge chip going on there. Let's move back to the back. trying to base this off of a few references I've seen. Show the chipping coming out on these rivet lines. Not sure how it looks though. Nice thing about working with Mr. Color and MRP on these is they don't give up the chipping ghost easy, so you can scrub in there and not have to worry about breaking away whole sheets. Start getting some chipping coming up like that. Now back here it's having a chance to soak a little bit. Oh, my hand's tired. We got the chips moving. You get the idea of how this is going. I'm going to pause so I can rest my hand for a few minutes. Okay, so I think I've got the chipping about where I want it. Mainly focused here on the wing roots. Some of that leading edge right there in the corner where references show these things tend to get beat up. Carrying back. A little bit up on the cowl here. And a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit on the spinner itself. Okay, now that the chipping is done, we can move on to finishing out the rest of the camouflage. And first, I want to go ahead and fucking hell. Okay, now that the chipping is in a good place, I'm ready to move on and start finishing out the rest of the camo. And the first step in that is to tackle the sort of overpaint of the roundels on the wings, which were originally RAF roundels and much larger than these tiny little dots. And so for that, I am going to use this handy circle template. And I don't need these to be exact or super saturated or anything like that. They basically just need to kind of set a perimeter and give a look under some other paint. So I'm using some MRP marking blue. Come on. Doesn't help. This thing is so fucking big. All right. That. Okay, for this next bit, we're going back to MRP Chestnut Brown, which I've loaded into the airbrush with a bit of Mr. Rapid Thinner. And basically we're going to use this to continue adding layering into the Middlestone and some of the Dark Earth in places. So, yay. Now we're going to go to stippling. So with stippling, basically reducing the airflow quite a bit. And when we reduce the airflow, it makes the paint come out in a more ragged fashion. So we can get some cool spattering going on. Okay, now we're going to repeat the process with some MRP PC8. It's MRP 251. It's a World War I RAF color. Or I guess RSC would probably make more sense, wouldn't it? I don't think the RAF technically existed in World War I. And on this one, I'm not going to avoid the Dark Earth areas. They're going to get hit too. Yeah, blah, whatever. And this kind of stippling is something where getting a bit of standoff distance is actually beneficial because it allows particles to spread out a bit more, so you get a bit more dispersion going on. Okay, so for the final round of this sort of stippling layering thing, I'm going to be using some Radome Tan. It's MRP 394. Now, I thought about using some US Sand, the ANA 616 color that was used in the Africa campaign, but honestly, it's rather pink, and that's not really what I need. I need more of a light yellow color, and I don't want to go quite as stark as white. So I figure Radome is a good option. Oh, that's nice. You can see it bringing out all kinds of nice little specks of warmth, specks of lightness. All right, now it's time to work on the upper blend coat of Middlestone. Middlestone is kind of shy with its opacity. At least the MRP one is. I know the Guns one is as well. So we can really sneak up on this stuff. And out here, because this Dark Earth is going to be touch-up Dark Earth, I'm not too worried about overstepping my boundaries. I'd rather reset them with the Dark Earth in general, especially out here, than worry about getting the borders really tight with the Middlestone. Okay, moving into the Dark Earth now, and I'm going to once again be using Guns C369. I prefer this shade to the C22 Dark Earth, at least for the temperate scheme. It has a slightly more complex color hue to it. I've thinned this with Mr. Rapid Thinner this time. Okay, so the Middlestone is in a pretty good place. Now I need to go in and I need to beat up the Dark Earth a little bit because it looks a little bit too uniform. So I'm going to play with a couple different shades here to add in some layering before I do one more blend coat. And I'm going to start out with some PC8. I think this makes basically a great sort of midpoint between the Dark Earth and the Middlestone. Kind of lives in both realms. And so I want to add a little bit more of that to the Dark Earth. And I have thinned this down with some Mr. Rapid Thinner. Okay, so you kind of see where this is going. I'm going to carry on and we'll pick back up when we're ready for the next color change. Okay, so the PC8 is down and it has done a really nice job of just kind of dirtying up the Dark Earth. I don't even think it honestly needs a further blend coat on top. It just looks the part. So I am now moving in. I left a little bit of the PC8 in the cup and then I added some NATO Brown. And again with some Mr. Rapid Thinner. And we're going to do the fun thing with the stencil masks again. Ooh, nice. Because this is so thin, I'm going for very subtle effects. Bring it a little bit back here. Okay, so I think I'm just about happy with where the Dark Earth is at now. If you look up here, come on, focus. Focus. Well, if you look at the wing there, you can see we've got a bunch of different sort of spatter and splotch effects going on. Some of them are lighter, some of them are darker, and it just makes the Dark Earth feel a bit more broken up and a bit more lived in. Which is exactly the point. Focus. God, this camera needs replacing. Okay, I got sick of doing the highly thin paint, so I'm loading up the next color that we're going to use to underbase the overpaint. Say that 5 times fast. And I'm going to use some US Helo Drab. Mainly I feel like some green drab tones would be good to help with the darker tone. And this is a nice dark paint. And it'll be fun to build some browns on top of it. Okay, so I've completed the underpainting for the overpainting. And as you can see, the US Helo Drab really doesn't look all that green. It looks very muddy and drabby and slightly brown, honestly. And it makes a good contrast to the rest of the Dark Earth. So for the overpainting of the overpainting, I have taken US Helo Drab and mixed it with Dark Earth, the MRP version, which is a bit more brown and a bit more saturated than the Guns version I've been using on the rest of the camo. So let's go ahead and start putting that down. And it's okay if this is a bit messy, because this is something that very much looks like a field repaint. Okay, so I've been painting this Helo Drab and Dark Earth mix, and I think it's still a bit dark for my taste. So I've gone ahead and just switched over to the straight up MRP Dark Earth. And we're going to paint that over this, and that should get us what we want. I think that'll be a better color playing off of the other Dark Earth there. Alright, so we have what looks like a completion of the camo and the overpainting. So back here we've got it on the fuselage, we've got it on both wings. We've got a big old patch over here. Awesome. So now I am going to remove the roundel masks and see how we've netted out. Okay, so the roundels have been unmasked, and for the most part, that went without incident. They are tiny, and honestly, I question what the hell the French were thinking, because from more than a few hundred yards away, how the hell are you even going to see these things? I guess they're relying on the big-ass rudder to do most of the heavy lifting. Anyway, speaking of lifting, there wasn't much to speak of. There's a little tiny imperfection on this upper surface roundel that I'm just not going to deal with. And there's another one here on the fuselage that I don't know. But yeah, that pretty much squares us away for this installment, which was focused on the upper surface of the P-40 and getting the camouflage down. And I know that this camera struggles to pick up some of the more subtle nuances and color shifts and whatnot, but we've got a nice dirty Middlestone here with a lot of stuff going on. All those layers really pulled through and gave it a lot of interesting depth. The Middlestone, or the Dark Earth, also looks nice and battered and worn and like it has been through some shit. And then, of course, we've got the fresher, overpainted MRP Dark Earth to provide some contrast and visual interest. And yeah, that's where it stands. So I'm going to pause here and hope you all enjoyed this, got some useful stuff out of it, and stay tuned for the next installment, which will be focused on getting the rest of the markings down. Later.